Hot diggity. All right, we'll go ahead and open the July 2nd meeting of the Planning Commission. Welcome, everyone. Our first order of business is review of the meeting minutes from our May 7th, 2026 meeting.
Fair.
Yes, go right ahead.
A couple of notes. In the attendance section, there are two small errors. City Attorney Schmidt was not present at the May 7th meeting. In addition, there is a small typo under Kelly Ewald's name. There's a Y added to the end. Thank you, Mike.
Ewalti. All right, are there any other corrections to the minutes?
Which one are you on?
May 7th?
I did have some of them. Back page. Back page is it? 3? Okay. The page that I had to correct this to is packet page 11. Is that that's the June 4th?
Yeah.
Right? Never mind then.
Any other corrections to the May 7th meeting minutes? Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
We have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Any further discussion on the motion? Are we doing a roll call on this, Dalton?
For the minutes, I have voice vote is fine.
All those in favor of adopting the minutes as motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. Next order of business is review of the meeting minutes from our June 4th meeting. Kathy?
Yeah, so I have a couple. Packet page 11. Fourth paragraph down. Commissioner Burzak said that every home along Lions Park would be a through lot. I said almost every home. I know that the ones on the corners aren't because they have their half lots. So, and then packet page 12. 6 down that started with Commissioner Urick. So what I actually said, Ms. Wilder stated that they do is there were always interpretations to fall back on. Commissioner Burzak advised that a through lot should have the option to be treated as such by the homeowner. So if you say as such, that sounds like I'm treating it as a through lot. What I actually said was they should have the option of having a backyard with a 30-foot setback, or if they wanted to utilize the through lot with a reduction in front yard setback, then they would be required to use the lower fence.
Understood.
So if we could edit that, because saying treated as such sounds like I'm saying that they should be treated as a through lot, and that's not the intent or not what I had said. So if we could change that, I appreciate it.
Dalton, are you able to capture that?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
All right, and then let's see if I have any others. No more on that one.
Any other corrections to the minutes from May 7th? Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the June 4th minutes
As amended.
as amended.
Is there support for the motion?
Support.
No.
Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. All right, our next order of business is a sign request for 315 State Street. I don't believe there's anybody here to speak to that.
No, I communicated with the applicant, Aaron from Oak Crave LLC. He informed me yesterday when I had informed him of the location change that he would not be able to attend and that his wife would be attending. I had not received any further indication from the applicant.
Well, what is the board's pleasure? Do we want to hold off on that until perhaps she can get here or proceed?
We could consider pausing it and coming up later in the agenda, or
Let's defer it.
Yeah, let's put that on the back burner here a minute. With that then, our next order of business is our organizational meeting. Which brings us to our nominating committee, and sure they've had some deliberations, and what are those thoughts?
If I may speak, three of us met on the nominating committee and spoke many times via Zoom for this last month, kind of back and forth with different ideas. We did feel that it was important that we keep some continuity as well as some experience in this position. And with those thoughts, we went ahead and reached out to planning commission members that had significant experience, at least a term. And so with that, as you know, people are extremely busy and have many things going on. And we had several people say they could not do it because of time constraints. So we did come up with two names, Tony Urich as chair and Kathy Burzak as vice chair.
Excellent. Tony, I assume you're willing to,
I am. Take on the responsibility, yes.
Kathy, you as well?
Yes.
All right.
So we need to vote on that?
I believe we do.
Correct. Yep, and a motion, support and acceptance of the nomination for both chair and vice chair.
Yeah, we don't vote for ourselves.
Correct, yeah.
Not that it matters.
Would someone care to make a motion based on that, or is there further discussion on that?
I'll make a motion based on the recommendations of the nominating committee that we nominate Tony Urich as chair and Kathy Burzak as vice chair for the planning commission.
Is there support for the motion?
Support.
Further discussion on the motion? I assume that's a roll call?
Absolutely. Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Plica,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Rurik,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert is absent, Commissioner Ebert,
Yes.
Commissioner Burzak,
Yes.
Commissioner Rice is absent. Motion passes.
Perfect.
All right.
I'll
Where's
let you,
my gavel?
I'll let you
I
carry
don't
on.
have a gavel. All right.
Acceptance speech.
No, I just appreciate the confidence of the commission. I'll do my best to be fair and respectful and efficient in our meetings is my intention. So let's move on with the next agenda item, which is 4.b. The amendment to the annual report. Mr. Dalton, can you summarize what this amendment is?
Absolutely. I was contacted by a member of the public after the city commission meeting on Monday. They had informed me of an error on page 8 of the annual report under special use permits. It has incorrectly stated that on October the 2nd, 2025, the planning commission had submitted a recommendation of approval for the request of 520 State 515 Market to allow for 8 short-term rental units. That was incorrect. It appears to have been a duplication from the item below that. I have updated the page to include the correct date and the clarification that it was a denial and not an approval. We are looking for a motion to amend the 2025 annual report to reflect corrections.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Castle. Do commissioners have any questions for staff? Hearing none, can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion to revise the previously approved annual report per the corrections.
Do we have a second?
Or
Any discussion? Take a vote.
Commissioner Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner, Chair Irwin,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
yes.
Commissioner Herbert is absent, Commissioner Ebert,
Yes,
Vice Chair Brzak,
Yes.
Commissioner Rice is absent, Commissioner Smith,
yes.
Commissioner Plitka,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right. Move on to 4C. This is in regards to an ADUs. Mr. Castle, thank you for taking our suggestion and implementing a survey rather than starting to draft some regulations so we can get some input from the public. Mr. Castle, can you summarize what staff would like us to do today?
Absolutely. So with the survey as presented, reviewing the previous minutes from last year when this item was discussed, it was requested that the final draft of the survey be submitted to the Planning Commission to provide feedback or being released to the public. So the intent here is not necessarily for a motion, but for the Planning Commission to provide feedbacks and edits to the survey before it is released to the public. As part of that, one note is that there was this question that was incidentally duplicated. Questions 6 and 7 are the same. One of them will need to be eliminated. In addition to that, I have provided for you feedback I received this morning from Commissioner Herbert, who could not be here tonight. The intention of this item is to purely be a discussion, feedback for any edits before releasing the survey to the public.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions for staff?
I have some questions. So previously, if you go back to the old meeting notes, we had mentioned that we felt that it would be nice if we could ask the participants what neighborhood they live in. Because if it only I see that it says, are you in an R1 and R2? Some people may not even know that, but I think having, the information, if someone states where they live approximately, that might be helpful because it will give us a better guideline because there's a lot of R1, distributed throughout. And I think that probably the R1, is the most impacted versus the R2 and the R3, where it's already somewhat of a multifamily situation or a dwelling unit that's maybe a duplex or something like that. So if we could maybe one of the numbers that got dropped, maybe add in a question about, if you don't mind, please provide, a location of where you reside. And then I also would like to express my appreciation that the survey is going to be done. I think it'll be a valuable tool for us to have to be able to better evaluate. The only thing else I wondered about is in the packet page 28, where, it kind of talks about what is an ADU. And then we go right into the survey. I thought maybe a little more of a, yeah, so packet page 28 talks about, what is it? And then we go right into on 29, the survey. But it seemed like it would be nice if our description could be a little more inclusive to mention like height considerations and things, because when people scan it and read it, they're like, wow, that sounds great. But maybe keeping in mind that, do they want them in their neighborhood is the first question, but maybe some of the questions about height considerations and things, because for instance, some people may think they're great in their neighborhood and maybe in their backyard, but if it was 30 foot high and it was looking into their backyard, maybe they wouldn't be as on board with it. So I don't know how we get to that point where we make that clear, but having the first question saying, are we supported in our neighborhoods, then we either need to have some of the discussion prior in the body of what, we're describing an ADU to include maybe talking about the heights and the locations and the consideration of where they might fall within a neighborhood, because that might be more impactful to people if they realize that, they might have something as high as 35 feet looking down in their backyard. So that's the only comment that when I looked it over, but again, very appreciative that we're going back to the survey and including it. So thank you.
So adding on that, maybe the question could be a little more detailed and just say, support ADUs being allowed in my neighborhood with the following considerations, and maybe see this other paragraph or whatever would kind of explain it very briefly, the different issues.
Right, and one of my perspectives as staff is trying to capture the data in a way that we can then convert it into some form of table or graph to make it a bit more digestible, to kind of understand the greater data with sort of short answer response questions. It's certainly, we can look at those and take that feedback, and maybe that'll, change certain perspectives or give us considerations that we had not thought of. It does kind of become difficult to interpret that data as part of a larger set. So just a consideration in how we want to define those as either short answer questions or form it into some form of multiple choice. Or
It could still be short, but you could just reference, maybe just say,
Or if you change the questions around and are you, the one about would you like it in your neighborhood not being first, maybe, because if they read about the heights and the things like that prior, if it's part of the paragraph of the introduction, then maybe that gives them, because reading the introduction right now, everyone, I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people will be like, wow, that sounds wonderful, but if they had all of the elements in play that might be a consideration, maybe some people would be less likely to want it in certain neighborhoods versus others. So I think adding a little more to the first page might be helpful. And then that question maybe not being the absolute first one might also help.
I think it being last could actually be pretty useful, right? That gives information for citizens to digest and consider when they kind of provide that feedback. So, and as far as Ms. Burzak's location request, we may just be able to request just a street that they live on, not a street number, just what street do you live on?
Right.
I live on Flanders, or I live on Forest, or whatever.
Rudy, you had some input?
Yeah, I don't know if I should bring this up to you now. I mean, I know we're looking at the survey, but I delved into this under the Michigan Residential Code and just what would be allowed or setbacks and things under that building code. Okay, so I don't know if we should get that specific about, I mean, we're going to be bound by that code on what we can allow structural.
Which code are you talking about?
The Michigan Residential Code
Thank you.
for accessory structures.
Well, so maybe that can be part of the introduction then, what the binding things are, like height, square footage, different things like that. Maybe that could be part of that intro then, if that's what is going to govern. So,
Well, see, there's an appendix that has already been developed for accessory dwelling units of the residential code. And it's not mandatory unless it's specified in our city ordinances to adapt that appendix. And that was sent way out in November, when I put it in the packet back in November. I mean, I'm wondering if that is something that perhaps to streamline and to help us not reinvent the wheel is if we look at that appendix that has already been formed that other communities in Michigan are under, and maybe adapt that appendix, because it does give parameters as to square feet and what would be allowed, and even gets down to the water supply, the electric supply, the gas and utilities. So do you want me just to send that to all you guys again to look it over? And I don't know how to proceed with that.
What's your timing, Dalton, or Mr. Castle?
Yes, my intention was to release the survey sometime next week and then allow for enough time to collect the data and then prepare the data into a bit more of a easy to digest form for the commission at the August meeting.
It'd probably be best to do that first to see if we're even really interested in it a lot before we get down to the appendix. I guess.
I'm unclear as to what you're.
Well, okay, so let's say the survey comes back and the town says, we're really not that interested. Maybe then we wouldn't have to look at the.
What is the city commissioners, what's their perspective? If we get a thumbs down, what are they gonna?
I believe their intention was to look into ADUs as a option to address the housing concern. I don't necessarily believe it was a directive to institute an ADU ordinance necessarily. With that said, they would probably like some kind of feedback or alternative options to be communicated to them.
To address the housing
To
issue.
yes.
Okay,
If you recall, Mr. Ebert, some meetings ago had a really valuable point when he mentioned about the commercial spaces, like a couple bank buildings and different things. I can't think of the name exactly, the taller building and the vacancies and things, and how desirable some location like that close to the downtown might be to actually have for middle housing and rental and things like that. And so maybe, I think the ADU is a good thing for us to look into, but maybe, parallel to that, we could also be considering some of these other options that might actually be somewhat more economically feasible, and then take buildings that are sitting currently with very low, rental occupancy and convert them into something desirable that would even really make the downtown even thrive more than it is currently, year round. In the summer, it certainly thrives beyond thriving. So I think Mr. Ebert had really good points about that, and that's something that maybe we could also parallel to this and consider at the same time.
okay, thank you. Mr. Smith.
Trudy, a question for you on packet page 29, when they have the 6 examples of ADUs. Are any of those, if somebody came to you and said, hey, I want to add an internal attic, is that something they can do already today, or do we need a separation? Because a lot of the stuff that's internal to the house, I'm assuming they probably can do already, but I'd like some. I remember you talked about this.
The zoning, like in the R1 areas are for single family.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to structurally add a place in the attic, we'd have to allow 2 dwellings first in that, but then structurally it could be done.
Okay.
But the ones that are of concern, if you look at that diagram, they have the detached garage and then the detached above the garage, and then to put an attached addition on. And that is what the code is looking at, like for setback purposes, height, their own water supply, or their own heating, own electric.
Have you had many folks approach you with something in this vein over the last handful of years?
Well, actually, recently I had a resident on Lions Park Drive who wants to redo his garage with the idea that it could be in the future maybe turned into one. So his questions were, what will I need structurally to have in that? So I was able to help him with that part.
Got it.
To be able to easily, convert that.
Okay. Thank you.
We've personally, I've probably gotten a couple in the last year.
Okay.
Is it our perspective that if an accessory dwelling unit was established in one of these examples, if it was an in-law, an adult child, that this would still create a multifamily use?
Well, an accessory dwelling unit is considered its own dwelling unit.
What separates that from, how would I differentiate that between just adding a bedroom and a bathroom to my house, or?
Yeah, well, we don't allow for boarding houses or, things like that. So if you wanted to add another kitchen in your basement, you wanted Mumsy to move down there, type thing, that's fine because she's family and it's not another dwelling unit that you're renting to me or somebody,
Yeah.
who's not-
Total separation. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how you look at it. It's a totally separate.
Would they have their own address then as well?
Yes, that's part
Hmm.
of the
Okay.
total requirement.
Um, I guess when I read through this, I had feedback for the survey itself. How did we want to implement this survey to get, an honest review of the citizen feedback?
Are you talking about like distribution of the survey?
Distribution, how do we prevent, it's like, oh, I'm on my street and I submit 20 surveys in my opinion.
So via Google Forms, you can limit it to be based on an email, which would make it a lot of work. Someone would have to create several different emails.
Okay.
It's not necessarily a perfect system. Someone could abuse it if they so wished, but it would take a significant amount of effort.
So we're seeing this as an electronic survey.
Correct. So it would be electronic. It would be able to be shared via social media on the city website. My intention was to make a nicer looking version of a physical survey. So if anyone wants to fill one out at City Hall, they're welcome to do that as well.
Okay.
For the purposes of the meeting tonight, just to review the current draft of the survey, I just used the PDF through Google Forms.
Okay. I know in the past, when the city has done physical surveys, a couple of examples we had was Chapin Hall was a development that we had a citywide survey distributed, like a hard copy survey. The Destiny of the Venetian Festival became a citywide survey. I know that the cost is significantly different in that format. And it would be a city commission level approval. But I think there is great value in that as far as a participation from the citizens. I'm just going to kind of go through just some questions I had or comments regarding individuals on packet page 32. There's a question 11 referring to basically, I think, allowing 24/7 parking on the street. I think that question could be worded a little more clearly, just kind of directly. I would support allowing parking on the street 24/7. It took me a minute just to kind of understand what the question was trying to get across. I think it just could be more clear. And I think it might be good to get some feedback from the streets department on the impact of that. Before we kind of offer that, I think how snow removal would be significantly changed and how feasible that would actually be. On packet page 33, question 15. It refers to a height. Do we think that would really be a concern with our 35-foot limit?
Well, right now, detached structures are limited to 14 feet.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
detached, it's specifying detached. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
So when it says second floor, should it have in parentheses with a maximum height of 35 feet or something so that it's clearer that, wow, it could be really tall? Because sometimes you think, oh, second floor, that's not very tall. But then when it's, 35 feet and it might feel more impactful. Do you think we should put the height that currently would be included in that, whether it comes from the appendix that you're currently looking at, or whether it comes from what we have typically right now allowed height-wise maximum.
See, yeah, right now, you know, a detached is 14, but a structure can be, a home can be 35.
Right, so if you're saying that an ADU would be allowed on the second floor and a home's 35, then in essence, would an ADU be allowed to be the same height? Or,
Well, I think we were looking at it in that home.
So as part of our ordinance, specifically for the detached ADU, I guess the question would be more so it wouldn't necessarily default to the 35 feet. It's currently limited to the 14 feet. Whether or not we want to allow an increase of that for ADUs, 35 feet wouldn't necessarily be the default for
okay,
a detached structure. That would more so come down to what we want that requirement to be in the language itself.
so I guess when I think about it currently, you know, if someone has a detached garage. All right, so Trudy, you're saying currently a detached garage, the roof line has to be 14 feet or lower?
The mean between the ridge and the drip edge, 14 feet.
Okay, so if that's 14, let's say the tippy would be more like 3.5, maybe 20, right? So if you did a 10-foot floor on top of 20, aren't you pushing closer to the range of 34 to 35 because of the roof peak?
Yeah, it depends on your, you know, if you have a flat roof or,
Hardly any of those around.
yeah,
you
or
know.
gambrel roof.
Yeah,
So-
because I guess that's what I'm just wondering, if it would be advantageous to have like what the height up to a maximum you could say of blah, 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 or whatever, because I think that depicts a different picture than people not realizing how tall they can really get.
Well, maybe we should have the discussion related to what's the intention of this survey. It's really, because we're not going to get the detail at this point that you're describing. But maybe just so the question is, what is the intention of the survey? Is it to get a general sense for what the community wants? Or are we trying to identify specific details?
No, so I understand that, but I think someone that may say, oh, I'd love to have an ADU next door, or I'd love one at, you know, here or there. Maybe if they have more of an idea of what a detached might be next door to them, I think giving them the information may help them better determine whether they're in favor or not, versus not having the information and then everyone just saying that it's sounds like a great idea, but then later they're opposed to it once they get the details. That's what I'm trying to avoid by giving someone, because I think a lot of people won't understand what the ramifications of it are. And are they good with it or are they not good with it? That's why I think we have to provide some kind of additional information that clarifies what visually may be involved with one. That's my opinion, but I think because there may be people that are totally in favor that may not be, or just the opposite, you know, so I think it's important to have some kind of a better, clearer understanding of what that includes.
So Trudy, regarding that appendix, those are the state minimum that we would have to
Yeah.
abide by?
I guess I'm looking at, maybe we should just, do you want them? Do you not want them in the area? And then let them know maybe with a PF or something that it still would have to be determined as to the structural guidelines and restrictions. You know. Because I think right now, a lot of people think I can just turn my garage into one. You know, or have the garage converted, but there's a lot of garages that were never structurally intended to ever be lived in, and that are on the property lines or within 3 foot that the state code requires. That's I don't know. It's a chicken or the egg. I mean, I don't know.
I think there's value in getting some feedback, especially on some of the particular aspects of an ADU, you know, lot coverage, setbacks, height, parking.
Yeah.
I think there's gonna be some good individual feedback on that. It's like, it might indicate why someone is supportive or maybe opposed to that type of thing. They say, oh, they're opposed, and while they're really opposed in these, because of these reasons, maybe. I think provide some, information. I think on that question 15, it could be valuable to just briefly describe a detached structure and then provide the current limit.
Yeah.
I think just go, oh, detached structure, like a garage or shed, whatever, and currently limited to 14 feet. That would help me to go, oh, okay, I'm picturing my neighbor's garage or whatever. Do I want that taller?
Any other questions for staff?
I'm just gonna have just on feedback on question 22, especially if we do this electronically, for them to have a means to look up their zoning district, whether it's a link or a map that they can open up. I think that would help me a lot, especially as maybe a citizen that's not pulling up the zoning map to go, oh, I can click here and I live around here. Oh, okay.
So our task here today is to determine whether or not this survey is ready for being sent out to the public.
Correct. If you feel comfortable moving forward with the amendments as discussed, I could release it next week. We could bring it back next month to look at again. Depending on how the commission feels on that.
So our question, I guess, to commissioners is this survey something we want to send out as is, or do we need to still work on it and come back to this next month?
I think with today's comments and reading through Eric's comments, I think he had some good points as well. I think if Dalton can incorporate that, I think the sooner we can get it on the street, the better.
I would agree with that.
I agree.
Surveys to
Yeah.
find out if there's a lot of interest in this or not. For the number one, that's the number one priority, right? Secondly, would be what are your concerns? What misgivings would you have about this? So yeah, let's get it out.
Someone want to make a motion? You need a motion for this, Mr. Castle?
A motion would not be necessary if the board is in consensus.
Do we need to take a vote for this? Or
If you would feel more comfortable making a motion, you are able to, but with an item such as this, it's more procedural, I suppose.
I agree with that.
All right, so we can do a verbal?
Yep.
So those in favor of sending out the survey as is incorporating, well, I'm not supposed to be doing this. am I?
Yeah, you're doing oh, good.
Incorporating Eric's advice in here.
Well,
Um,
the advice from today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you have sufficient information, Mr. Castle.
I'm comfortable with
So those in favor, say aye. Those against? All right, sounds like we would like to send out the survey with modifications.
it. Understood.
Okay. Are you the lady for the signage?
Yes.
Okay, so let's bring you back in. We did not make any decision without you being here. So we'd like to open it up to you to give us some input.
Hello, to the board. I'm Amy Haight. I'm co-owners full of Crate at 315 State Street. We had submitted our request for your approval on a sign. We would like to put a full of Crate sign. I'm not sure if you guys have the image in front of you. It's like an italicized, definitely cursive font. We thought that kind of looked simple. And classic, which is kind of what we opted for when we opened up our business. When we kind of compared, I think you guys noticed at first that our original submission to you, the sign is quite large. We were looking to kind of fill that space, which we have already upgraded with the new paint job. I'm not sure if you guys have noticed that. We went from that gross red to a very nice charcoal. And once Mr. Castle let us know that the signage was too large, we made the modifications that you should see on your revised application from us. We did make sure we got everything down within the size parameters. Standing on the street, we're looking at this just kind of more from, yes, a business aspect, but also, you know, like a family aspect of kind of feeling comforting and at home when people are in downtown St. Joe. We see the signage, some people have awnings that are somewhat outdated. We wanted to do something just a little bit modern, a little bit fresher. Just to notate, our business, we do have some signs that are in the window, but there is that aluminum awning over our building that unfortunately cannot be replaced at this time. So we were hoping that maybe our signage up on top can kind of help illuminate our location and kind of match the vibe that is going on in downtown St. Joe.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, does anybody have any questions?
One question, you mentioned that there's an updated size. Do you have a graphic of it?
So on the application form, it lists the updated dimensions.
But
I have them right here.
do we have
Let me
anything
get the updated
graphic though?
dimension.
So if you have like an image of it,
I do on my phone. I can pass it through. Is that allowed?
that would be potentially helpful.
Is that
Okay, so what we're looking at is not right?
So the image itself is correct.
Thank
It's just smaller than the dimensions presented on there. The dimensions presented on the application form that is within your packet are the correct dimensions.
I'm not sure if
Okay.
you guys are able to, but it is still the same design. It's just smaller.
So it's not 20 by 40.
Yeah, it's not in your face.
What size?
The new dimensions are listed. The width is
It's 18 feet 2 inches by 3 size.
18.2 by 310. The total square footage would only be 70.
Pretty big.
And no illumination at this time. It's not an LED. It's just that white. It's kind of more like a matte, not so much of a stark white, to pair up with the charcoal that we selected.
I'm sorry if I missed it. Did you say this was painted or a vinyl application?
No, it's attached to the building.
Oh, so it's like channel letters or,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, but we have somebody ready to hit the go button.
So I appreciate the reduction in size, because the only graphic that I received was this and
That's a lot.
my first impression was that from a scale standpoint for the height of the building, it just looked out of scale. It
Right.
just looked extremely too large. The revised, in my opinion, is much more in keeping with it, you know, it looks to be a lot less visually out of scale. It seems more closely matching the area that you have to work with. So I appreciate that there was a revision to that.
Thank you.
And I like that it's simple and, you know, just lettering and not overly, because when I saw this, I was just like, it's just so big that it really does take away from your business, in my opinion. So I appreciate the reduction. Thank you.
Yeah, so we were actually thankful when Dalton was like, oh, well, a little bit too big, but, oh, okay, great, we can shrink it
Yeah.
down. So, yeah, absolutely. I think I pulled the white card on that one to make it smaller. Yes, and just being able to keep that same design.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
You know, I'm gonna walk across to grab my phone, and that's okay. Thank you so much.
Good idea.
I think this one's pretty.
Do we have, commissioners, do we have any questions of staff?
I do. So according to the graphic, the storefront is 378 inches, which translates to 31.5 feet, which would, if that gets doubled, is 63 instead of 64. I don't know whether we rounded or typically we wouldn't round.
It may have been a rounding error. I would have to double check the math. So, as part of the applicant's request, they are requesting a 10% increase in the allowed maximum
Correct. So I don't know
Permitted
whether we're
sign.
still within that 10% if we drop to 63 in lieu of 64.
Mr. Kessler, we're waiting for you to.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay, I'm just want to make sure we're,
Apologies.
what we're doing here.
I'm
Okay.
thinking,
All right.
Packet page 23. The width of the tenant space facing the street is 32 feet, which per the definition of building frontage, when you're dealing with a multi-tenant space, you would take the width of the tenant space for which the sign is servicing. So in this case, it would be 32 times 2, 64.
So the 378 dimension is not correct?
Correct, yeah.
Mr. Ebert, any more questions?
No, sir.
Commissioners, do we have any more questions of staff?
I have a question. So
Ms. Burzak.
since there seems to be discrepancies in the width and the other dimensionality provided, is it possible to not give an exact size, but to instead say that we would allow 2 times plus the 10%, so that then if there can be verification if it actually is 378 inches or 32 feet as depicted on the application? Is that a better way to approach it, since there seems to be some
I believe if the commission feels it to be appropriate, a form of a condition could be placed such that that math will be double, triple checked, and staff can provide a update at the next meeting to ensure compliance.
Any other questions?
So it would be out of 5.7 feet.
Somebody ready to make a motion?
I guess if we made a motion based on the most recent discussion, are we saying we would want to include that after a review of actual dimensions, that it still meets the sizing requirements? Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct, yes.
Is the applicant comfortable with that language?
Yes.
You understand kind of what we're talking about,
Just
right?
to
So
make
if
sure
it
that
had to shrink just a tiny bit or whatever, that still works with,
100%,
thank you.
absolutely.
So
We're
the-
okay doing like a do that the parameters.
Mm.
if the-
After the sizing is all
Yes,
verified.
Does that need to come back to us, or can we include that in the?
That was an
language?
offer I made if the commission would feel more comfortable receiving an update on the matter.
But they could still go ahead and get theirs. I don't think we need to delay them another month
Right.
for.
Right, correct. It wouldn't be delaying the application approval. It would be providing just the commission an update on the action that occurred after the meeting.
So the motion would be 2 times the width or allowance plus 10%, and it's subject to verification by staff of the dimensions.
Great.
Commissioners, who's gonna,
I'll make a motion. I'm gonna try at least. Planning Commission moves to approve the subject sign permit application for the property located at 315 State Street, PID 11-76-0340-0168-005, submitted by Aaron Haig, representing Full of Grape LLC, as the proposed sign is appropriately based on the factors of the approval described in sections 25-33, period 1B and 25-33.2.c of the City of St. Joseph sign ordinance. All other factors it's discussed today, including a maximum of 2 times the frontage of the building plus 10% would be the maximum size that we would be approving.
Do we have a second for the motion?
Support?
We have support. Is there any further discussion? Yeah, I think we're prepared to take a vote.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert is absent, Commissioner Hebert,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brzak,
Yes,
Commissioner Rice is absent, Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Flickta,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter,
Yes.
Chair Rurick,
Yes,
motion passes.
that motion passes. All right.
Can't wait to try the crepes.
So much.
When do you expect to open? Oh, you're open now.
they're definitely.
Oh, you've already been there.
Okay, we need to go over there. We don't know anything
Why you
about
need a
it.
sign.
It's why.
That's why the sign needs to be that big.
All right. Okay, so now we are at 4D, lots and yards. All right, Mr. Castle, can you summarize the revisions since our last meeting?
Yes, so staff has provided a couple of updated materials based on the feedback received from the previous meeting. Based on Commissioner Ebert's considerations, figure 2AA, an amended version has been included in your packet presenting the corner lot that was discussed previously, having a secondary front yard. In addition, we have provided a brief memo discussing the concern on alleys and the existing zoning coordinator interpretation that the certain streets are treated as alleys for setback purposes of the zoning ordinance. We have presented as an option to the commission 2 altered definitions of alleys that could possibly be added as a part of the proposed text amendments. If you so wish, option A is meant to serve as a guideline and provide standards for how said determination is made as to which streets are treated for alleys for certain zoning ordinance purposes. Option B would directly state which streets are being treated as alleys. Each option has their own pros and cons. It can be helpful to lay out guidelines for how such determination is made. However, it is also beneficial to clearly state exactly which such streets are being treated as alleys. So pros and cons to both. I would advise the commission to discuss the pros and cons of each. Or if you don't feel that they would be appropriate to move forward as part of these text amendments. If you would like to see them added to the text amendments, I must note that that would be an expansion of what was proposed and of what was noticed. So we would have to renotice the public hearing for next month in order to have those be included as part of the text amendment.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have questions for staff? Ms.
So
Brzak?
I just have some questions that I'll just go through. Packet page 42. Rear, the bottom rear means yard. In the case of a through lot, the rear yard is opposite the front yard. See figure 2-8A. However, where adjacent property fronts on the through lot's rear lot line is subject to the front building setbacks. So should it say front building setbacks and fence, whatever it's called, so that it's clear that they're both subject to that versus just the front building setback? Because to make it clear that it applies to both elements or not.
I suppose my concern as staff would be that the fence ordinance is in a separate ordinance, so making reference to it within the zoning ordinance directly may be concerning.
Well, but the problem herein lies with people that go here to look for what they need to do and understand it. And if there was a reference that you needed to refer to the fence ordinance, because people on their own may not then understand that that is a restriction. And I think it's important that clarity is always first for people that are trying to understand what the parameters are, because someone may, for instance, be looking at a home to purchase and they pull open the ordinance and they start reading what would be for a through lot, but then they have no idea that they have a Saint Bernard that will have a 3.5-foot fence. So I personally, because I use the ordinance all the time, weekly, if not daily, feel that adding something like that would be really beneficial to at least give people an idea that, oh, you must look here also and look at that, because it's also pertinent. It'll be pertinent. So not having any mention of it makes it where then it puts whoever is looking at the ordinance and trying to understand it at a loss in terms of what they understand is being required. So.
I understand what you're saying. It's just that when you have a zoning ordinance and the references would be to other zoning ordinance provisions, that's in the general code of ordinances. And the fence ordinance would specifically address where fencing can be located. So there is a source to look at it. And we can't incorporate everything that might be referenced in the zoning ordinance. Might be a building code issue, something that's outside the scope of the zoning ordinance would not be included within it for a reference point in most cases. So it's more of a drafting, a legalistic issue than it is. I understand what you're saying, but not everything can quite work that way. It is addressed. If somebody wants to have a fence, they're going to look at the fence ordinance, which would give them the information they need. It is available.
Kathy, it was added to section 12.4, number C.
Yep.
And that 12.4 is in the code of ordinances.
What page are you on?
44.
I'm on page 71 minus 16.
49. No.
That's some bad math there.
43, I see. Packet page 43.
So in the code of ordinances, chapter 12 is all about fences. So that would be in there, pretty clear on number C.
So are you looking at 12-4?
Yeah, 12.
Okay.
Section 12-4 residential fence.
Yes, so it talks about front yard, secondary front yard, and side or rear.
Yeah, and then
But-
under C, it says, except in the case of a through lot where the maximum height of a residential fence shall be 3 1/2 feet when subject to the front building setback regulation.
Okay,
That's pretty quick.
okay. Yeah, 'cause that was the comment when I read it. I didn't feel like that people might understand. And then on packet page 44, number D, it's a subjective response, but it says, or the likely value of the property. And it says the language would not impact the implementation of the ordinance. No effect is anticipated. There will be properties that will become non-compliant. So I don't think that statement is totally accurate, because if a property is non-compliant, it may impact the value of the property. So that's just a comment. And then packet page. Go in here. So then on packet page 55, there is just a small section on residential fences. And I'm just trying to understand, because the part that's underlined is new, right, in red?
Correct.
Okay, so it says the maximum height of a residential fence in a side or rear yard is 6 1/2 feet. that part is already part of the ordinance. And then in red, it says, except in the case of a through lot where the maximum height of a residential fence shall be 3.5 feet when subject to front building setback regulations. So I guess I'm wondering, when won't it be subject to front building setback regulations? And like when it says when subject to front building setback regulations.
It's referring to the portion of the property in which that setback exists. So if you were to look at the rear street of a through lot and you were to travel from the property line 30 feet back, in that section is what that is intended to refer
But
to.
the whole thing that we commented before is fencing isn't based on setback. Fencing is based on yard frontages. So that's where I still don't understand, because a fence in a front yard is the entire length of the front face of the building. So I was unclear what this meant. If it meant that after I get to 30 foot back or 15 foot back, if it's a front building setback, which is 15, can I then put up a 6-foot fence? I'm still confused.
Yes, so once you exit out of that setback, then you are within your rear yard and not within the setback, at which point the 6.5 foot requirement would apply.
Okay, so then somehow we need to make it clear, because a fence is based on yard, not setback. A fence definition, if you go back to the definitions, the entire face up to the building facade is what dictates what the height of the fence can be. So we still need to somehow clarify that. That's where I was still confused. I wasn't clear what that meant, because fences aren't based on setbacks, they're based on yards.
Except in this case.
Except in
But-
a through lot.
But it's not clear. It says,
So with the through lot, it becomes a bit complicated because the way it is detailed in our ordinance, it's not considered a secondary front yard for a through lot. It's considered a front setback applying.
so could we add a statement that clarifies that once you exceed the front yard setback, then the fence, standard for rear yards would be applicable or something like that? Because right now it's not.
Yeah, I
clear.
suppose would it help to develop some form of figure that shows this visually? Would that?
Maybe
Yes, sir.
that, or just adding that extra sentence, because I read this and then I was confused, because somewhere else it says that you follow the 3.5 foot, that one that you showed me before. And then here it kind of says, once you get to the setback, then you can change. So I was confused, because it seems like, I have no problem if the height of the fence changes. I just don't feel it's clear. I was confused what it was. So either a illustration or a little more clarity, to add in, that once you exceed, so for instance, if a front yard setback is 15 foot, you're saying once you exceed the front yard setback, then the fence can be, over the 6-foot height, right? That's what we're allowing.
For the rear yard of a through lot.
Yes, yes. So a little more clarity on that would be, I think, important to add. Or graphic. And then the only other thing, if we're going through all of it, that I commented on, if that's in there, was, okay, hopefully I still have that page, because I went through the definitions, option A and B. Oh, there it is. So the questions I have, again, using the ordinance all the time and trying to look things up, it's beneficial if I'm working on a property to be able to know what streets might be considered alleys for the purpose of the ordinance. But a couple questions, is Young Place east of Langley Avenue, it says where properties front onto Young Place east of Langley Avenue, Lake Lane. Does that mean that Lake Lane is the alley or Young Place is the alley?
I think we've been treating them both that way. You go in, let's see, lake, and then you go around and you go.
It's like a horseshoe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess when I read it, it didn't sound to me like both were being,
I believe there's a missing comma right there.
okay.
Lane Drive, comma, where properties front onto Young Place.
Well, so it starts,
Lane.
okay. So maybe a little more clarity on that because it was confusing. And then is Shannon Drive, okay, so horseshoe behind Hoyt. Is Highland Drive a street or is Highland, because I couldn't find a Highland Drive anywhere in the city of St. Joe.
Next to the hospital. No, that's Highland Court.
No.
That's Highland Court. So I noted street or court because there's Highland Court over by the hospital and then Highland Street.
Highland is down where the walking trail is behind, Lions Park Drive.
So that's called Highland Street.
Yeah, so that looks like it's a typo. It was meant to say.
Okay,
Highland
so
Street.
just if that could
This
be,
language is not intended to be final. It's more so to serve as like.
okay, I'm just
example.
clarifying that I
Yeah.
wasn't sure what it was. So, and then Shannon Drive, Google lists that as a court, but is it a drive? I was trying to look all
I
these
thought
up to
it's-
see where I
It's
was.
behind my house. It's dry.
Yeah, I think it's drive off of Morton here.
Yeah, because I couldn't find that either at first, but I eventually found it. And it's off Morton, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I would just say that, I appreciate staff putting this together. I would feel more comfortable from a voting standpoint on the through lots if this language could be, part of the vote because, I think it's important that, again, there's clarity on, what the through lots would, change in terms of making properties non-compliant. And, you know, as you can see from option B, there would be, without the clarity, there would be a lot of properties that would then become non-compliant. And so, I appreciate staff putting this together and, I personally like to have it called out so that it's clear what streets are included. Now, staff could always add that at staff's discretion, who knows, maybe there'll be a new subdivision built somewhere that will have a new street that then, you know, you would need to include as part of the alley. So it could be also added that other, you know, streets, lanes, courts, or whatever could be included at staff's discretion. To give you a little more leeway, not feeling that these are the only streets or forts or drives that could ever be included.
So there could be an option C that incorporates the two.
Yeah.
A hybrid of both.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, and if we're gonna bring that part back anyway, or something that gives you guys, it shouldn't be that these are the only streets and then, oh, well, okay, there was one instance that wasn't clear and not thought about, and then later it then causes an issue. So maybe to give yourselves a little bit of, the ability to, for staff to further determine additional streets, alleys, whatever you want to say, that could also need to be included. But thank you guys for including this. I feel that it's greatly appreciated and that it helps clarify and that a lot less properties will then become non-compliant. That was my big concern about the number of properties that will become non-compliant. So that's all I have.
Anyone else?
So for alleys, if we incorporated, any of this alley language, do we see any particular, ramifications in how these alleys are treated? I know in the past, the city has had some disagreement on at least the main maintenance or upkeep of alleys.
Oh, you mean
good
like the
question.
potholes?
Yeah, like
Okay.
potholes surfacing, who has the responsibility? I know there's been disagreements between private and the city perspective on maintenance of alleys. Is there any ramifications of this language regarding that?
So the proposed language would specify that it's for the purposes of zoning ordinance requirements. So for things like maintenance, this would not be applying or factoring into those decision-making.
Thank you. And for Attorney Schmidt, if you think it's appropriate, do you have a particular preference on option A or B, or nothing to say? They think that would work best from your perspective?
Well, I guess what I can say is that currently some of these alleys, streets, the public ways have been determined to be alleys for zoning purposes, and that was done through the zoning administrator's ability to interpret provisions of the zoning ordinance. I think to clarify that that is something that can be done for zoning purposes, it would be helpful to have something in the ordinance that specifically states that. So I know Vine and Lake Lane, I think, were a couple of those that have already been interpreted. And so it would help, I guess, secure that a little bit more fully. There may be a little bit of concern when people see this, but I think from a legal standpoint, it's preferable to have something in the zoning ordinance that specifically addresses it or gives the zoning administrator the ability to make that interpretation based on factors. I wouldn't want, full total discretion. I think it has to have some standards there that would be looked at, which, typically would be the dimensions of the public way and how it operates and the things that Dalton has included in option A. So to me, maybe a hybrid is a good thing. Something to have more clarity would be helpful from a legal standpoint if the planning commission and the city commission believe that is appropriate.
I appreciate that, especially with, Brett, you've been working with the city for a number of years to have been exposed to different concerns regarding alleys and streets and how they're treated.
Any other comments, questions for staff?
Dalton, where is the updated figure to 8A?
It's at the back. It's not in the original staff report. So because it's a open public hearing that is being continued, I maintained all of the original materials to be consistent across the record of the hearing. And then at the back end, I have added the updated figure and the memo regarding alleys.
Gotcha. Thank you. My only other comment is we're back at page 46. There's a statement footnote on that same 2-8A, but it's different. That on a through lot, all street lines shall be deemed front lot lines for setback purposes.
Correct. Deemed front lot lines, but not specifically a side yard or rear. It would not affect the yard, but it would apply the front setback.
Well, I don't think that's accurate. It would only be if there were homes that fronted on that backyard.
Oh, okay. The specification, that qualification is not included within that statement is the concern.
Correct. Yeah, I don't think that statement is accurate. Because if there are no homes fronting the rear street, then you don't have a front lot line on that.
So amend that statement to include the qualification in the greater definition.
I believe so.
Understood.
That's all I got.
All right, commissioners, do we feel that the revisions and our discussions address the, Ms. Burzak, what would you like to?
So I think I already stated, but I would feel more comfortable waiting to vote until the portion that, in my opinion, is important to have clarified so that before we vote, because if we vote now and then it's determined not to include the alley descriptions, then I would vote a different way if I don't know that the LE descriptions and certain areas, because the number of non-compliance properties will go up significantly if the clarifications aren't made prior to voting. So I would prefer that we vote once we're able to have it included, and we table it until that time. If you don't want to do that, then I would vote differently based on not knowing what then will transpire after, afterward. So that's
So
just,
procedurally, I need some help here.
Yes, so the options before us, someone could make a motion to submit a recommendation of approval of the amendments with any alterations wished at this time. If those alterations you wish would include the alley language, we would have to renotice the public hearing, as that would be an expansion of what is being altered in the ordinance and what we announced to the public. If that is the will of the commission, then I would advise motion to close the public hearing and then open a new public hearing on the amendments at our next meeting. Well, so yes, so it's part of the same, I guess the public hearing was closed last time. So this is just a continuation of the commission's discussion.
I think from a staff perspective, it makes sense to do everything together. For different reasons. It's just more cohesive that way, and it's presented as one package to the city commission. I think it's easier to understand when it all comes together. And if the commission today is comfortable giving direction for revisions and noticing it for a public hearing on the alley portion in particular for the next meeting, we can do that. Or if you want to see it all first before it's noticed for a public hearing, then that would delay it till September vote. Or, yeah, is that right? Yeah, for the public hearing. Yeah.
Anyone, comments, suggestions?
I would prefer that if staff could get a hybrid of the alley A and B descriptions, I would be more comfortable having a public hearing on that all at once.
So we would like to have all the revisions made to these ordinance before we approve.
Before we have a public hearing.
Before we have a public hearing, okay. Is that okay with you,
Absolutely.
Mr. Castle?
And then if city staff feels comfortable that that's achievable by the August meeting, are we comfortable with establishing a public hearing for these changes?
I believe we can draft an updated hybrid version of the definition change for alley and have that noticed in advance of our August meeting. Yes.
Are our fellow planning commissioners comfortable with that approach?
Yeah.
I am.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I think it's unanimous.
Understood.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to do with that formally?
I guess Attorney Schmidt, would you advise that they formally conclude the item? Or would we be comfortable just moving on and noticing a new public hearing without a formal motion to?
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and do it without a formal motion.
Understood.
Yeah.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to make a comment? Any further comments by commissioners? Staff, any comments?
We have not currently received any applications to be seen at the next meeting. With that said, we will still meet as we have discussed. We will have the text amendment refocused for a new public hearing.
Okay. Ms. Burzak,
There may be something being submitted on the 9th.
Correct. The deadline has not passed, so we may still receive an administrative.
Thank you.
somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Good job. We got out of here, guys.
Yeah, you travel.
I need a gavel.
We need to bring the
I think we got a
All
vote.
in favor, say aye. I forgot that part. Okay.
That's all right.
Those against, we go home.